exploring the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany. As you can tell from the background, I am here again in my study and I do have a guest here. We do another interview via Google Hangouts. Hey Andreas, how you doing?
Hey Jörn, I'm fine, thanks.
I'm very glad to have you here, and you're here for multiple reasons. But first thing I would like to talk a little bit about is what you did before, because usually when we talk to the people, because we are more a B2B medium, and when we talk to the people, it's usually that they take the idea from a former job and basically get a solution that the business they used to work for actually needs. So, what did you do before, and how does it tie into your? It's not pronounced ITYX; it's pronounced
ITIX.
ITIX, exactly. And you have multiple products, and today we are only talking about one of them.
Yeah, we're talking about ThinkOwl, which is in a way our startup activity. But to come back to your question, Jörn, it's a very simple story. I was born in a way as a banker, and I skipped into the service industry, around 25 years ago, I guess. And I was working for a very huge telecommunication company, mobile communication company. And I was always driven by topics like modern digital CRM, paperless workstations, paperless places where people could work. So this topic, paperless, has always been a topic in my professional journey. Whereas I have to admit, as you know, we're still not paperless. That's my feeling, far away from being paperless.
Do you have an educated guess, like in 10, 15, 20 years, we'll be completely paperless?
I'm very curious about comments on that topic, because as you see, still the amount of paper that is sent through companies like Deutsche Post in Germany especially is still only in a minimum decreasing, right? So we're talking about 2 or 3% a year. So if I take this as an example, it will probably take us another 30 years until we are paperless. So this is why I would not dare to say if it's taking 30 years or only 3. I just have no opinion on that, because I'm very afraid of maybe having the wrong guess. But I do have some guesses and some opinions when it comes to how AI will change the workspace station or our work as knowledge workers in the companies. But that's another story. But coming from the banking topic, I was always working on this kind of pre-digitized work in companies. And I was part of the first big startup rally, internet startup rally, which we had by the end of the 90s, beginning of the new decade.
And when Netscape got its IPO done, I remember I was already around by then.
Yeah, and Telecom had his IPO, you remember, and there were the first some companies that were actually crashing at that time.
We may add for everybody who's not from Germany, because Germany only makes up like 2% of our YouTube traffic, that Deutsche Telekom we're just talking about used to be the monopoly telecommunications provider in Germany. Their monopoly was cut, and basically they got transformed into a private company, AG, Aktiengesellschaft, like a PLC, and then they got listed during that time. Sorry for the interruption.
Right, absolutely, and that's true. And as we all know, this first wave of internet and digitization was taking place at that time, end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s years. And actually, from some projects in the field of chat and co-browsing via internet. I was one of the founding members of ITIX, which is a spin-off, famous German spin-off of the University of Koblenz-Landau, and we are dealing with computer linguistics still day one. So that means in the late 90s, we started to work on automating emails, for example. So reading emails, detecting emails, recognize the topic, extract the data, and make it usable in an assisted way for people working on the workstations. And this is formally our birth in a way. And we have done a kind of rebirth in inventing ThinkOwl, which is our way of bringing multi-channel desktop for service and back offices into a new decade.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about ThinkOwl before. We'll get back to that. But what's also interested for our viewers, our listeners, when this gets as an audio podcast out there, like on Spotify, on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, I was curious, how did you become a member of Bitkom? And can you explain to everybody who doesn't have a touch point with Germany what Bitkom actually is?
Yes. Bitkom is actually the biggest association. That's true, the biggest association in all Europe. When even between the associations that you have in the industry sector or in other sectors of the economy. It was formerly the Association for Telecommunication and Internet, and it is today probably the biggest association for digitized economy in the whole world. So it's situated in Berlin, in Germany. It has more than 2,500 companies organized in it. And the absolutely top companies when it comes to talking about digitization and AI are organized in Bitkom. I'm happy and proud to be the president of the working group Artificial Intelligence in this association. That means that I have a very close touch to other companies like IBM, Accenture, PwC, and others that are internationally working on the topic of using AI as one of the key technologies in the digital change, for just changing our economy, which is actually happening right now. And the way to Bitkom, my personal way in Bitkom, came through the fact that I was organizing some activities around this working group, and today this working group has more than 2,000 followers. It is around 30 months old, so you see how what a dynamic, explosive growth is in this topic of artificial intelligence in Germany and in Europe especially. And so what we do day to day is we are working on some publications and activities around of gaining more visibility for artificial intelligence in our economy, but also in our society, sure. And on the other hand side, we try to bring together people that work with artificial intelligence, companies that want to include artificial intelligence in their mindset, because my personal belief is that 80% of this digital change through AI is a mindset thing. It's not a technology thing. Yeah, this is a very, very good time at the moment. I'm absolutely sure that we have just started in working on that. And we are meeting around 5 times a year. In upcoming weeks in Berlin, there will be the Hub conference, which is the #1 digitization conference in Europe. And so we are living in quite good times today.
Just a very short statement from you. Do you really believe Germany is so much back in AI, artificial intelligence, like everybody wants us to believe, or is it that we are once again pretty bad in marketing? Because when I was reading through some studies, nobody really noticed that Germany has one of the world's largest research centers for AI.
True. Yeah, it's true. Well, I know that it is, for most of the people, it is in a way funny to hear that the German government wants to spend around 500 million euro every year for the next 6 years. So the plan is 3 billion euros for the next 6 years. And in a time where in China there is an investment of 40 billion every year right now. So it seems like being a bit funny, so you could laugh about it. That's true. On the other hand side, we have to be realistic in a way. We are at the moment only talking about the state investments and not about the economic investments in Germany, especially in Europe. That's number one.
Just to make clear for everybody who's not familiar with Germany, we're just talking about like the federal government investment, no corporate investment, no state investment, no city investment whatsoever. It's just the federal budget we're talking about right now.
Exactly. And so it may sound funny because it's such a small amount of investment there. But on the other hand side, I see lots of topics where we are really trying to catch up with what's happening on the international base. Sure, China especially has quite offensive way of investing in artificial intelligence. We have to admit that they have some kind of playground where it's easier to work on new ideas and new platforms for artificial intelligence. This would be a problem data-wise, security-wise in Europe. But sometimes security and data protection must not be a negative point in this game. But anyway, I think we should not think that Germany is out of the race in that. I have a very positive opinion when it comes to talking about our German Mittelstand, as most of the people that listen to your format
it's the small and medium enterprises in Germany. Kleine und mittelständische Unternehmen, KMU. Here you go.
Yes, SMEs. The SME section is probably the engine in Germany's economy in a way. So they all say it's quite well. This engine, Jörn, this engine always is starting a bit late. Yeah, but it's running good afterwards, right? And this is why I'm quite optimistic when it comes to discussing about the role of the German economy. But there are still some things in the direction of AI that we have to admit and work on. For example, there are lots of very good brain people coming from German universities, and they go to Google or somewhere else in the Silicon Valley. And so one of the topics where we personally want to fight for is that lots of our good brains stay in our economy. But we are on a pretty good way of working on that topic.
Pretty good. Let's talk a little bit about ThinkOwl. When I understood you right, when we talked before this recording, basically ThinkOwl is there to take over the European market from ZenDesk.
Well, okay, that's a kind of interpretation that would be okay in a way. The basic idea, but we have to admit that the size of our marketing budgets are not as big. But no, to come back to it, in a way, it's. We are coming from this topic of hashtag omni-channel customer service. We are coming from the hashtag of intelligent automation of processes through AI. And so our vision is to provide the right contextual information on the desktops of our knowledge workers in enterprises. This is our basic vision, and AI is the key feature for it. we see that some studies in the US say, for example, that around 38% of our time is just wasted because we're searching for contextual information for what we do right now in real time. Well, I think 38% is a big number. It smells a bit unserious, but let it be 20, right? Let it be 20%. Let us estimate that 20% of our time just gets wasted because we have the lack of contextual information to what we do right now. We are searching, we are researching, we have to change between applications, and these may be exactly this 20% amount of productivity when we talk about the lack of knowledge workers in the industries at the moment. And this is where we, with ThinkOwl, we founded out a very young team, a young way of providing omni-channel application in the service and back office industries. And we are step by step bringing it on desktops all over the enterprise. And the basic idea is whatever you do at the moment, whatever email you open, whatever message you get, whatever social information, whatever ticket is routed to your desktop, right? We try to give you exactly the information that fits to the recognition of the topic, right? So if you send a complaint,
give us one example how this could work?
Yeah, it's working already today with our former product Mediatrix, which is not cloud-based, but ThinkOwl is cloud-based. ThinkOwl is what we call a democratizing of AI because it's usable for companies that have only 3, 4, 5 seats in customer service. We used to work for companies that have 100, 150, 200, 300 seats in customer service. So there is a bit of this change. I call it a democratizing of artificial intelligence. It can be useful for all companies, all enterprises. And an example would be, for example, if you send a complaint to companies like IKEA, this Swedish furniture company, or for FedEx or Samsung, if you have a complaint or some issue with your products from Samsung and you just contact them via email, for example, then we try to make sure
they already use you.
Yeah, sure. They use technology from ITIX, and to make sure that at the moment I open a ticket, I open your email, I have an overview of what you do, what product is about, how to prioritize your ticket. When does it have to meet your expectations, and so on and so on. So it's not just picking a ticket and working on it, but have the right information there at exactly the right time and with the right priority. And this is probably what our workstations in 2025 and after this point will look like. I'm personally absolutely sure that my children, I have some children 11 and 13 years old, and I'm absolutely sure if they get their first jobs after being on university, college, hopefully, and they go have their first job somewhere in enterprises. So in, let's say, 12 years from now, I'm absolutely sure that we will have workstations and desktop in companies where we don't use keyboards. We don't use a mouse, for it, but we will talk to them, and they will have the right information just there for 80% of the things that we do. Right there when we need it. And this is exactly what digitization and artificial intelligence in special can bring into our working life for the next couple of years. And this is absolutely amazing. It's amazing time for digitized workstations and workplaces.
Mm-hmm. And basically, when such a ticket comes in and there's just the email of the person complaining, what additional information does your tool get out for the person replying to this email?
Oh, it's a lot of points where artificial intelligence measures the information from the past Yeah, and just tries to find out what makes sense for this information that you have on your screen right now. So, for example, who's the expert? An expert, we call it an expert owl, right? Who was the person or are the persons in your environment, in your team, in your company that are have been the best working on topics like this in the past? What were the answers to a customer in the past that met the expectation of the customers best? What are the topics that are coming in that should be worked on now, and others, that could wait until this evening to work on them? So these are just some of the possibilities. Actually, at the moment, what we have, just to have another example, what we have at the moment is a so-called intelligent routing. So today, still the routing of tickets in a company is always measured by regular expressions. So sure, if someone complains, you take it as a high priority, and if someone has a change of address, you take it as a low priority. But sometimes, depending on the people that are available in your teams in an enterprise, sometimes you need a kind of intelligent routing. So in the past, what happened if I gave this tickets to this person and this team? How did this behave? Did we meet the expectations? And so on and so on. So this all has to do with data, and we all know data is the fuel for the engine of artificial intelligence. And so our concern and our goal with ThinkOwl is to make sure that processes in enterprises, especially in customer service and back office organizations, get rid of this 20% of searching, researching, and waiting, but just act with some good suggestions in context.
And talking about that, where could you apply? You already talked about customer services. I mean, that's a picture book example. You also talked about back office. What came to my mind is something like a help desk. Is it still too complicated, or is it where you could apply it as well?
Absolutely, help desk activities is one of the situations where ThinkOwl could help. Help desk activities, but service desk activities too. And when it comes to back office work, we have to admit, look, there are so many things today, and there we are back to the paper, where we started from paper. If we see there are so many activities still when it comes to working on applications in the economy all over the place, by the way, in the US, my personal experience from our projects in the US, because we're doing a lot of projects in the USA too. Right, and my experience is that when it comes to basic traditional applications and processes in companies, the US companies are even behind the digitization that I see in some European companies. But to come back to what I mean, like for example, in the financial sector, if you want to start a loan, or if you have a mortgage process, right, because you want to buy a house or something, it is always a matter of lots of paper, and there are always people going through this digitized or real paper to check out where is the real information from Andy, for example, that makes me help to check whether we are able to give him a mortgage for his new house, right? And this is just one of the lots of examples. We are still using knowledge workers to search in papers for the right information, bring it together, and to draw a decision or drive a decision out of it. And this is a part where AI can help us enormously. So 2 years ago, last sentence, 2 years ago, when you have asked me, Andy, are you sure that we are able to do some mortgage processing in 2 years through AI? I would have admit, hey, that's quite complicated stuff, right? To work on this application of a mortgage or a loan or a normal credit that you take from your bank. It's a lot of time. It has to be done manually and steps, manual steps. But I was wrong. AI is able to gain around 80% of all needed information in context to what you do, and bring it onto the screen of a knowledge worker. So by the end of the day, it's an assistant of repetitive repetitive work on the workstations of people. And this is, to come back to this point, and this is where I think AI will give workers a possibility to do more and have more substantial decision making in their work. And I think today, through this manual steps and through this change in media, people in banks are working on 8 applications at the same time. And AI can be this clue, and that's what we want to do with ThinkOwl, to be this clue and bring together everything people need on their desktops, right to work on the tickets.
That was pretty cool, pretty good explained. 2 more questions. Number 1, what would be the most exciting thing you think we'll see in the next 5 years talking about AI?
Mm-hmm.
What will be your expectation? What would be in 5 years, maybe we could have X, Y, Z?
Mm-hmm. Well, the second part, second question.
The second question comes after that.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure there are so many topics I could mention now. Let me mention with a topic that is very wide discussed at the moment. I'm doing around 35 to 40 speeches, keynote speeches in Europe when it comes to AI conferences a year. And always when I ask decision makers from management, it's from time to time, even C-level management people, that I'm discussing about the chances of artificial intelligence and digitization. And it's quite naive sometimes, because when I ask them, what is AI for you? They always say it's chatbots. AI is chatbots. And this is so naive, because it's the wrong way of thinking, that we will have machines replacing knowledge workers on our workstations. That's naive. We have to stop discussing about human and machine being rivals. I'm absolutely sure in the next 5 years, we will understand that it's never about human or machine. It's always about how can we use machines in an optimal way to efficiently help people gain more efficiency and be more productive and have a better workplace. You can't tell me that working in 8 applications and copying things from the left screen and put it into the right screen is a very nice thing to do every day, right? And I think AI will help companies come through this change in media that they have through the high speed of changes, IT changes in most of the enterprises. But to come back to your questions, what will we see within the next 5 years? I don't believe that there will be chatbots all over the place, and I don't believe that we will do anything in 5 years in talking to machines and they will understand us clearly. I still believe that it will take some more time until we're there. Whereas I see that there's lots of low-hanging fruit in the market. There is lots of things in platforms that are able to be operated today through the use of AI. For example, our modern and future mobility, and in a way our answer on the problems we have when we talk about climate change. Artificial intelligence and big data will be the key technology to make this happen. There will be no modern mobility concept in our modern societies without AI. For example, when we talk about health, this is a sector that is rising. AI in health is rising at the moment extremely. When we talk about the chances that we have, when we talk about the cities and the governmental use of artificial intelligence, when we talk about e-government, better communication between consumers and citizens to the state departments and state authorities. And these are only a few that I can mention. Then we talk about lots of things where I can really make a big change in our day-to-day life, and this will help us to meet some of the expectations and some of the needs that we need to find solutions for in a modern society.
Very, very big answer, but hopefully most of it comes true. The last question would be, it's like a curveball. I usually like to do that at the end of an interview. If you could be the CEO for any given company in the world for just one day, which company would it be and why?
Oh, that's a difficult question. Well,
That's why it's at the end.
but in a way, yeah, it's a difficult question. But in a way, it's a very easy question, or it's an easy answer for me. I really love what I do, right? And I'm in a way, I'm something like this person that is trying to make things happen for ThinkOwl, that is trying to bridge this traditional, as you see at the color of my hair, I'm always familiar with the traditional way of doing management in companies, and the startup period is a very, very exciting period for me too, and I like it so much to be in touch with young people in their 20s or late 20s that are opening their new businesses, and this is really an absolutely amazing time, right? On the other hand side, I would do some changes, or I would if I would be the CEO of one of the big 4 or big 5 US companies, for example, like Google or Facebook, I would try to use this one day in reminding us of the fact that we are sure we are our currency of what we gain is money, or it is an opt-in, it's a subscription, it's data. No doubt about it, that's fine. But we still should never forget that everything we do is we want to make the life of citizens or consumers more comfortable, and we should never forget this. And secure, comfortable and secure.
Great. Thank you very much for the interview. Sorry for my allergies. I had to cough from time to time. It's spring and I don't like it at all. My eyes are red. So sorry, guys. It's my allergy. Thanks for staying with me. Thank you very much for the interview. It was a pleasure having you here. Guys, remember, sharing is caring. Thank you very much, Andreas.
Pleasure was mine, Jörn. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.